Yeah, but she's gonna be away.
Okay,
Is that
Jay's
what
also
you're
absent.
All right, it is 6:14. I will now call to order the March 9th, 2015 meeting of the East Hampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns on agenda items while the meeting is being recorded? We have no hearings or meetings, requests for certificates of compliance or emergency certs. We have no further updates on the status of the enforcement order for 37 South Street. So we'll go right to compliance updates, active projects, open permits. Mount Tom Estates, Mass DEP file number 151248.
This is a pre-order
That's,
condition, so it's, we have it on here because it doesn't expire till October of this year, but there's nothing going on there and it predates the
Nothing,
reporting
Mount Tom
requirements.
Estates?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Hall Street Extension, Gillian Estates, have we been contacted? I'm
I
not
have
aware that
not.
we've been contacted
As
by
of this
them.
afternoon, at like 1, we have not been contacted.
Okay. Anything right on the end of your street?
Nope, all quiet on
Western front?
the western front.
Pleasant Street Mills?
We're in the process of getting the bid docs together. We're hoping to have construction starting by early May.
And that's phase
2. That's the last phase. No other phases after 2.
Vision at 3.
No, 2 and 3 funding got combined into one
So
project.
phase 2 and
So it's
3
phase
is now
two.
phase 2. Got it. Glendale, Leadville, West Palmer Meadow, no updates. Nashawanic Mills, 15 Cottage Street. They caught up with
They did, we have them.
previous,
Here.
did they send anything for last week?
No,
Or
they're up to, let's see, they're up to February 23rd. They do, we'll just need to remind him that even though there is no, very, very little site work happening anymore, that they still have to supply them during the duration of the project. Cause, I don't know, I didn't get back to him with that. He just said there's really no work happening left.
So
But here's the
weekly,
reports.
or they can petition
To
to
go to
request for
monthly at this
monthly.
point.
Is it like it,
And only ignore it once a
is
month.
it stabilized? I mean,
I believe, Jay said that when he was there last, before the snow, that it was stabilized. He said it was in pretty good condition, but I have not seen it in the snow.
yeah, I mean, I wonder if they have it, like, if they have erosion control blankets or
Well, they
if
say that
if it's
so-
seeded and if the grass comes, then we don't have to worry about it. I suppose that could be a while off still.
Right.
It's not gonna be worse before it gets better, so stop talking.
I'm wondering if, maybe perhaps after the warm weather this week, if we might be able to get a feel for what's going on with the site.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
possible.
So, if anyone can do a solo site visit, swing by, see how things look, I'll try.
I can try.
I can try this weekend as well. I'll be around.
Do you know where the site is?
No.
The former East Hampton Dye Works. So, one Cottage Street is Riverside Industries, and then the building that kind of blends into, where they've been doing all the construction, that's 15 Cottage Street, though.
But
Is
is
it
it just-
condos or apartments? I can't remember.
They're apartments, 15
Apartments.
units. Is it the slope along Cottage Street that's having?
And the whole rear of the property.
Mhm.
There's a huge parking lot behind those buildings, and the stream that flows over the dam at Ashwanick Pond goes under those buildings, or through those buildings, and then daylights on the north side, and then that flows into Lower Mill Pond. So there's a bridge over it, and
So our jurisdiction was the parking area, and in the front, actually, there's some work happening as well near the stream.
The rain
Yeah,
garden.
brook, yeah, there's a rain garden in there.
Mhm.
So that was our jurisdiction, to make sure that it wasn't just draining right into the stream essentially.
which it did a couple times.
Which it did a couple times.
Okay, so I'll email the project contact and remind him of the ongoing condition.
Yep.
Okay, Nashawanick Pond Promenade Park, City of East Hampton.
So you received some correspondence from Berkshire Design today. Jeff, from Mariah, I was gonna call you Jeff Mariah, I don't know why. Is also here to speak to this, but, I can just try to briefly explain what the situation is.
Do you
So
want me just to start to tell them what happened technically? or-
that would be great. Why don't you take it?
With the helical piles, we did a test in December. And basically what the results of that test were, it determined how much resistance is required when they're putting them in. You know, there's a torque resistance. And based on that, it would tell you what the load capacity was of that individual helical pile. The piles needed to, for design purposes, are supposed to achieve 15,000 pounds of vertical load resistance. In order to get that, the torque had to reach 3,200 pounds. So when we got 3,200 pounds of torque, we know we have a good pile. All except two of the helical piles on Williston Avenue reached the required torque, which was great news. The ones on Cottage Street, I don't have an exact count, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that did not. And then in addition to that, there was 3 locations where we hit an obstruction, which we think is in some way part of the dam structure, so we can't install helical piles on those locations. So we have, actually there's 3 locations where we couldn't install a pile because it hit an obstruction. So we have a total, and then going back to Williston Avenue, we had 2 that did not meet, the required torque, and 1 where we hit an obstruction. So, what the proposal is, in the locations where it did not meet the required torque, Berkshire Design Group with their consultants decided the best solution to that would be to install a concrete footing at the bottom of the pile, and then we would transfer the load from the pile to the concrete footing. And then at the 3 locations, it's 4 locations where we hit an obstruction. At the 4 locations where we hit an obstruction, they would just simply install a footing similar to what was approved previously, and put in a pipe column, which would actually be, it would not only be identical to the helical piles, it would be a helical pile. We have leftover material that we would use. So the net effect is I don't believe, you wouldn't see the footing, and the net effect visually be, you wouldn't know it, you would just see the slender 2 7/8 inch pipe column or helical pile. So we're talking about a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, what that many? 10, 11, 12, that's 13 locations total. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, some of the locations that you previously approved have actually been converted back to piles. So there was 2 on, I believe, on that farthest edge of Williston that were previously approved. They were able to put in piles in those locations, and they met the required torque. So those footings are no longer needed, which was approved at the last meeting.
I think there's,
That's what this is.
Yeah.
Would be worth comparing the 2 against each other.
do you have this, or do you want to see this?
Well, I only have it electronically, so I can borrow that. This is from the previous meeting. That's what we received today, not just, So, Williston Cottage.
So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations that were approved. However, one of the 6 locations did not lend itself to a footing. I think that's a new point, but it turned out to be a place where we hit an obstruction. So I don't think that's going to.
So it's these ones, so where that red is right there, that proposed footing is now a pile.
No, this is,
Isn't that
this
right?
is, this is
That's
here.
over here.
Okay, sorry.
So
That's
these-
the
Oh,
other,
that's one,
there.
that's okay, yeah.
Right, so this was concrete, that's a pile, that's a pile. And then, I believe at least one of these, which was
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
And those are both no
Yeah,
piles.
this is a location where, yeah, so this is a pile. And then,
This one stays.
yeah, it stays concrete footing, so that's a non-change. So that was not an obstruction. The obstructions that they hit were here, here, and here.
Well, that makes sense, it's right, could be part of the dam.
Okay, so this was a footing. It's
There was a few boulders in there though, correct? Over those.
Oh, and that's what I'm saying, when I say, our supervisor, Don, thought they were somehow related to the dam, even though they may not be concrete, but we don't know that for sure. It's an obstruction, whether it's stone or concrete, that's large enough, it's not practical to move it or alter it. We wouldn't want to go moving large structure that large close to the dam, whether it was intended to be there or not. And so that's here, here, and here. Oh, no, here, here, and here, these three locations, and I think this was one of the ones that was proposed to be a concrete footing, and staying a concrete footing, same here, and, let's see.
So, okay, so the yellow is, the helical pile was installed, the torque failed, and then it gets converted to a concrete footing?
The
Yes.
footing that's added to it.
Okay, so that,
If you go to the
how did,
detail.
how did that happen?
So the detail shows that,
Well, this would be, this I think is intended to be a location, that would effectively be, that would be the appearance, whether it was a new footing altogether with a pipe column installed in, or it was a helical pile that failed, that we're leaving in place and then pouring the footing. So it's two sets of circumstances, but
but the footings are exactly the
Is,
the
same.
footings
is this
are
the same
yeah.
detail?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So the footing is exactly the same whether that pile is driven through it or not.
Okay, so
Larger
basically,
now though, it's a 30 by 30 instead of 24 by 30, or no?
They always work 30 by 50.
Okay.
so basically installation wise, for where you're converting a failed pile to a footing, you're excavating around it and pouring concrete.
On top of gravel.
Where we have, where we have failed piles, where we're installing a footing at what will now be an existing helical pile, there's already, we already have at least some area opened up because we had put in 15-inch plastic sleeves, so that will.
Anticipating that they may need to
Right.
put something in there at some point, so they put sleeves around to sort of keep the soil back and then put the pile in.
Mm-hmm.
How much extra impact is it to the construction? I mean, our charge is really to determine the impact of the buffer, to the buffer zone, right?
Right, so,
Resource area.
so the way the project is permitted, there's no discharge of dredged or fill material below the high water line. And is that still the case?
Yeah,
So,
these are
this is
above
still the previously
Still above the
approved
water line.
limit of work.
Yeah, so the.
This was all gonna be rip-wrapped
Mhm.
anyway, so this is just a change in
Construction methods.
construction or method.
Yeah, so really it's not,
Material.
the footprint of work is basically the same to.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just keeping the loads to be what they're required to be.
Yeah.
It's a lot, it's like watching gears. It's been fascinating for me because you've got
And
loads
gears
this way,
like
loads
sausage.
this way, loads this way, and how all of those different things have to piece together. It's really complicated, it's like a
Yeah.
jigsaw puzzle. And with, you throw in the soil conditions on top of everything, and it's been very complex to even get to this point.
Soil conditions on Cottage Street, I think this was known beforehand, but they were suspect, I mean, we know they weren't gonna be as good, but there was no way of knowing how, you know, there was no way of knowing what load we'd be able to achieve until they were installed. So,
Okay.
Yep.
So I think, do we still agree then this is a minor change? It does not warrant a request for minute order conditions?
It's within the previously approved footprint of work and it doesn't change the end result. So I appreciate the detailed information, but I have no concerns about the change.
Okay, so we made a motion last meeting, we want to show the other one?
I move to approve this as a minor field change.
Revised for design.
Is there a second?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, that's it.
All right.
Steve?
No, slipped on the ice, same one.
Can I steal that from you for the file?
Yes, once I pull off my other stuff. Which do you want? Probably just the layout plan?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. File. Their reports.
These are for the reports, yeah, for,
I'm just gonna put these with those, so they're all gonna be filed in the same. Alright. Anything else on National Icon? Jess?
What?
Anything else on Earth?
No.
Yeah?
That's enough.
That's a reflex.
You good?
I'm good.
Can I ask an engineering question?
Sure.
How is it that they couldn't predict what load it could bear, knowing the soil conditions and stuff like that?
I think that would require another soil condition.
Yeah, I mean,
Did
there
they
was
do-
testing, there was absolute
Tech.
geotech testing done, and there were soil reports that were submitted as part of the bid document, so they knew what the test results were. But there were certain load requirements for vertical load and lateral load, and it's been a months-long dialogue on meeting these load requirements and how these load requirements then tie into the structure itself and the load requirements required for that structure. And you move one pile and then you've changed the whole structural load, so it's like, it's a snowball effect, you know, really, it's been a lot of brainstorming to figure out how do we do this without adding $200,000 cost to the project as well, because we could add 100 more piles at $200 or $2,000 a pop, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you would meet those load requirements, so it's
Plus
very
this-
complex.
The pond is probably, the shore of the pond, probably a lot of it is filled because there's a dam there, so you move 10 feet over with a piece of equipment, you might hit a completely different soil condition than you did next door, because of maybe there might be boulders that they just tossed in there in some areas and then not in others.
Here's a question. Williston Ave, between Rubber Thread Pond
Yep,
and Nashwanik Pond,
yep.
is that a dam or is that called something else?
I mean, it's a road with a culvert in it.
It's a road on Phil, it's a
There's
causeway?
there's a dam identified, I think, on the other end of Rubber Thread Pond.
And
Yeah.
on the north, on the
Yeah,
upstream side of the
Williston.
bike path,
Yeah.
there's definitely a dam structure. I was just
Still-
wondering,
We just identified all of the dams for the
Still-
hazard mitigation plan,
Yeah.
so we have them now.
Yeah, but the Wilson Ave road embankment served as a dam for a very short period. For a new project, until it ceased to be one very quickly, dramatically.
Moving on.
No more Mass Live comments.
okay, just curious, does that help? Dan works on dams?
Having worked on dams.
Dam engineer, Chris is.
Yeah, now natural gas
Waters.
pipelines, I was water and wastewater, but now I do natural gas pipelines, I know, I'm right over the dark
You're
side.
such a glutton.
For
Yeah,
now.
how you end up where you end up.
It's true. It is.
Okay, so no updates on the Oxbow. I'll follow up with Terry Smith from Fish and Game Office of.
Does he just need to close it out, is that all it is?
Does.
That's
Okay.
all he has to do, yeah, he just said he
Certificate
was
of
gonna wait
compliance.
till the weather, something about the weather, I don't know.
Is he really gonna do
He needs to.
We'll remind him when he comes in for the
Mm-hmm.
Fisherman's Act.
Because it was so busy in the fall, that's why he was gonna wait till the winter when it got less busy for him to do, so we should get it.
Brookyard Brook Conservation Area, no updates, though they did get CPA funding for the culvert on the other end, is that right, Jessica?
CPA funding for the culvert? No, we got it
No.
for a trail, we can't use CPA funding for
Okay.
a culvert, no. No.
Okay. Well, the trail is,
Oh, no,
the
no.
culvert is access, so I
The
didn't know if they were
yeah,
related.
so it's for ADA.
It's
culvert.
just for the trail.
It's an ADA,
Okay.
yep, trail. I don't think they got it for the culvert. Now I'm curious, now I'm freaking out. I'll have to go back and look at it.
Sorry. But I will have to check my memory, cause I don't recall if the stream off of East Street is perennial or intermittent.
Oh.
Oh.
Yes. The unnamed intermittent tributary,
Okay.
no, we we agreed that the unnamed intermittent tributary that they just replaced the culvert on, or
Mhm.
rehabilitated the culvert on, is definitely intermittent. But they dropped the other culvert crossing, from their
Street.
original scope because permitting was a nightmare.
Hmm, interesting.
Okay. LeGrand, no updates.
Mhm.
General business, draft local wetlands protection ordinance, updating city stormwater ordinance.
So our actions from last week
Which we decided was our next step.
was that we were gonna take another look at the documents and come
Yeah,
up
that
with a
did
plan to
happen.
move them forward.
Okay.
And then Jessica was gonna put together an ad hoc committee, which would include the city planner, Jim
Oh,
Gracia, a
yeah.
member of the planning board,
Mhm.
and a member of
This
the
is so why
conservation
we're not moving
commission.
forward on this yet. Okay, thank you.
Ad hoc.
And
Yeah.
who's supposed to be on that thing again?
You.
Everybody.
Jim Gracia, a
Yeah.
member of the planning board, and a member of the conservation commission.
Which member of conservation?
I think we should probably discuss that at our next meeting when there are more people here.
Okay.
Because otherwise someone's getting thrown.
It's a
Not
great,
volunteer.
great fun thing.
Yeah.
So what about
That
the
looks like a
local-
bus.
That's just for the stormwater, right?
Yeah.
So what about the local wetlands protection ordinance? Should
No, it
this
doesn't
committee
seem
be
like a high
committed
priority.
to for being prepared at the next meeting to discuss at length?
I think someone needs to just
Not it.
write that thing and then bring it
Bring
to a
it.
meeting, and then we just talk about it. And until, nobody seems particularly motivated to be
I
taking
will
this on at this
gladly
point.
take time away from your project to work on it. I will do my best to come in with a document that we can talk about.
Okay.
It may
That's
have
a
another
good-
town's name on it, but.
The one we had wasn't bad, was it?
No, I think
'Cause
we just need
I
to
took a couple
revive
of
it.
towns' ones and put them together, so I
Mhm.
think it's just a matter, and you guys commented on it, I'm almost sure,
We
so
got-
it's
we
not.
spent a lot of time on that.
We do, so I think it's a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll take a look at it, update it.
Yeah, it might just need,
Yeah, you might
Half
look at it
hour
and say,
edits.
boy, look at how smart we were 4 years
God, we
ago.
were on top of our game
Yeah,
back in
4 years
08.
ago.
Yeah, whatever it was.
Okay,
Alright. Never mind.
So-
Go ahead.
and then at our next meeting, we'll identify, hopefully we'll have a better attendance. and
Yeah.
Identify the.
Is this when Jay's on his a longer extended period? Has he gone for many meetings
He's
like
gone for
this?
the whole month of March, isn't he?
I think so.
I feel like Ashley's gone for it too.
She's just
gone
lost.
this meeting. No,
She's
she's
away.
elsewhere. I should remember where we go. She should be back for the next meeting, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Jane already does CPA, so that wouldn't really be terribly kind.
Jay's a CPA.
Jane does this.
Oh, I was gonna say, you're like,
'Cause
that's
we're
a
not gonna
bad
see
time
him
for
till
me.
after your next
I get it.
Yeah.
Stupid thing to say. I know he's on the CPA.
Okay, so we'll talk about that on our next.
All right.
Manhan Raldrell draft O&M. Actually have, where,
So we searched our files and determined the limits of the initial permitted construction disturbance?
huh?
I don't know, just looking at outstanding
Oh, we have
actions.
not searched our files.
Thought you were gonna, thought you were pulling stuff out of the files there for a second, I got excited.
I will before I leave tonight.
Okay. Takes very little to get me excited.
Okay, so we still need to do that.
And then we're gonna suggest.
Barbara has asked me multiple times where it's at,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I said, I keep telling her it's on the agenda.
It's on the
So
agenda.
we, so
On
this,
the back.
this is in our court, this ball,
Yeah.
our court.
Oh, yes. Wow, I don't know where I'm at tonight. I haven't
It
I have not had any cake.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
that's a shame.
It is a shame. It's a whole hour-long ball, like a policeman's ball. We were holding court. That's where I was.
So, okay, I'm gonna move on from this. I'll check the file I'll check the rail trail filing in our files tonight and see what I can come up with for useful information. Conservation Commission, potential new member.
I'll send it to Barbara.
Yep, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
You wanna do that?
Pauline?
I just
Nah.
sent it to Barbara.
Colleen is a wetland scientist with a
Oh.
consulting engineering firm in the area.
All over the
And
place
she's a
tonight.
soundtrack.
This is my client. Yeah, I know, you mentioned your own.
So,
Okay.
you've met with the mayor, and it's just a
Mhm.
matter of timing.
Yeah, it's just a matter of filing papers, getting sworn in,
Okay.
and that's about it.
You have met with the mayor?
What?
You've met with the mayor, is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah,
And what's your background again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
environmental wetland scientist.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Exactly.
That doesn't get you off any hook.
What?
That is cute. For you. Well, we're gonna pick your trail building brain.
I wonder if there's another commission in the state that has
Listen.
the experience that we do.
That's so
Probably
little
not,
time
but
to do.
thank God you do.
Maybe we could enter like a trivia contest or something.
Yeah, maybe.
They tried
Oh
to
my
do that,
gosh.
no, Mark Simpson
remember.
tried to do that, like a
You would
trivia
kick
night.
butt. You with your like Rain Man-esque version of being able to quote regs? She's amazing!
Thank you for calling me an idiot,
It's amazing what you can,
It's
what
amazing.
you can pull out of those regs, just by, it's amazing. Anyway. Moving on. So it's just a matter of time, then you just have to get sworn in.
Yep,
Yep.
Can you take it off the agenda now?
I
or-
think we will, yeah.
So we full, right? That makes us full.
That makes us a seven, that
Yeah.
has us occupying
Right.
7
That's
seats.
great.
We had Eric, we lost Eric,
And
we
now
had
we-
Colleen, so we're.
And I'm gonna
Jessica.
call you Jessica, I'm really sorry.
You can call me Colleen, so.
It's gonna happen.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll see.
There you go.
Both.
I'll try.
You could get name tags, you need name tags, little like plates in the front of our,
We can
We
make
don't have
those
enough
if,
room.
I can make them if you need them.
can't, there you go.
Would you like them?
We don't we have them?
Well, we have brownstones
Oh,
and.
We can make them. Do you want them? Nameplates?
You
No.
seem awfully excited.
You
It's
just
It's
just
tell
just
me.
a
simple.
planner
We have
loves to make
label
names.
things.
We have them for the planning board and the ZBA and CPA and
We-
happy to make you names.
we had them at one point, and we just stopped putting them out because, I don't know.
No one ever came to our meetings.
Yeah, no one came to our meetings.
But now the people at home can watch and know
We
who you
should,
are.
Exactly.
we should have
The home
them.
game.
All
And
right.
somebody,
Yes, please
somebody,
put that on your
you know,
list.
processing that video can just,
Put, yeah.
it'd
put
be
our
like
names.
Reservoir Dogs, all of a sudden the screen will go black and it'll have Mr. Pink come up.
Don't even.
I think fuchsia's a better
Yeah,
version.
I knew you were gonna look at me when she said Mr. Pink.
Pointed to you.
Can, oh, you really, did you? Can we get a bigger table maybe too, cause this is around seven people's, we're gonna have people not like with their back to the camera at this point, I think, I must feel, or maybe
This
just
is
like
the
a.
only table we have, I'm sorry.
Okay,
We can't get a new,
We'll
he
deal.
just,
He just brought it in,
He just
Paul
brought in a
Shannon.
new table and he's very excited about it and I don't wanna break it.
it's a nice table.
If we twist it at 90 degrees.
Those chairs will
then
break,
we-
by the way.
Then we could go 3 on
Didn't
one
you
side,
break
3 on
that?
the other side, 1 on the
Shit,
shit.
yeah. Unless we're right at the front too.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. If
If
we
we
twist
did
it at 90 degrees,
3 and 3 and then you at the head.
it'd be perfect.
Yeah, I see it.
That's pretty intimidating.
Then we need nameplates.
We'll take that under consideration.
Or you could move your meeting room to upstairs if you wanted, that's the other option.
Oh,
But our files
yeah.
are. I don't know, we can,
That's a good
we can
point.
see if a rearrangement
Yeah.
works.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
CPA makes it
Alright.
work, so you guys should do,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah,
not.
they have their backs.
They're 9? Oh, they have their backs to the camera.
I'm good with using a
So-
clipboard
No.
in the corners over there, instead of using clipboards, like.
Have a
You
kid's
gotta use
table.
the corners better.
Yeah,
It's
it's
Yeah.
definitely feasible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna make it happen.
Alright.
Okay.
We're moving on.
were you able to provide the large scale site plan to
I
Barb?
did, I gave it to Barb and she brought it to Rich, and then you had sent me saying that Google Maps now has
Yeah.
microburst, so I didn't do anything with that information.
No, that was just a look at that, that's
You were just
awesome.
excited, okay, I wasn't sure
Somebody-
whether I was supposed to do, I was supposed to
Okay,
email
that's pretty
PVPC
cool.
and say, redo the map with the damage, but, okay.
I don't know if it would be available, I don't know if it's available to
I don't know
anybody
either.
else, you know,
Okay.
but that would be cool.
What is it?
You can see the, microburst damage on Mount Tom in the latest Google Earth aerial photos.
Ah,
It's pretty cool.
That's a good thing to know.
Pretty cool.
So you gave the map to Barbara, she gave it to Rick.
Rich.
And so he'll mark up the map to define the limits of the storm damage and what will be proposed for a new trail around the damage.
Yes, all
Okay.
4 things that you asked for,
Fabulous.
Echodale West.
nothing.
All right, meeting minutes, February 23rd, 2015. Do we have a quorum? We don't,
Yeah.
No,
All
the
4 of us.
people were at the
we
meeting.
don't have,
Yeah, we do. All
Yeah, we
4
do.
of us.
oh, we
are here.
do, you're right, Jessica was already appointed at
Yeah.
that time
Yep.
and sworn in.
Why are you looking at me?
Cause my brain stops. All right.
Ring.
Would anyone care to make a motion before the Swedish chef arrives?
I can't make the motion because I made her the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes from
February 23rd.
February 23rd.
Second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Oh, correspondence. I have your bag-
Correspondence?
I have your bags of goodies, hold
In the meantime.
Your box of mail. You can talk about other things.
We,
I do have one other thing on
Mm.
here from the last meeting minutes was
Mhm.
the forest cutting plan by Bernie Gall.
yes, okay, so, and then when Jessica gets back, we'll talk about that. So, we sent, the commission sent a letter to Bernie Gall, and there should be a green card waiting for us saying that his place of business received it on March 2nd, I believe. Basically saying it's not clear whether the work proposed qualifies for the exemption. Thank you. Since there does not appear to be complete information describing the proposed activity within resource areas and buffer zones to resource areas. We have requested the opportunity to perform a site visit at least 10 days before the work is to occur. And then, the information that we opened at our last meeting was a copy of the plan that Bernie Gall sent via his forester at large. And then we also had a copy of DCR's certificate of cutting plan certificate of approval. But there was a note from the service forester that MGL chapter 132 requires harvesting activities maintain land in a forested state. Conversion of use subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. So my understanding of that is that if they clear cut an area that is no longer a forest and you can't clear cut, you have to selectively harvest to maintain certain canopy. Though I don't know exactly what those details are. Forestry, no?
No.
Forestry?
Take a
MGL
class.
chapter 132.
I mean,
I got rid of my copy of Managing Your Timber Lot, so, and I did. I think I gave it to Jay, actually. So we sent him a letter dated February 26th. He received it. I think I said, I looked it up and it said March 2nd. But I will print that out so that we have a copy of
I
the
think
receipt.
on the back it says, if you look at the mark with the stamp, it says 2/02 March 15.
Yeah, that's the postmark, she's supposed to put a date of receipt on it, and that's not there, so I will still print it out just in case. So, I guess if we haven't received it, we need to contact him this week.
Haven't received what?
An invitation for a site visit.
Oh, I see.
When's it gonna happen?
Yeah.
When's the?
I don't know when the
start?
work is gonna happen. I don't know if there's a schedule here.
if he comes into the building.
Hang on a minute.
Should ask him to contact you for a site visit time.
Mhm.
Saturdays are kind of the default,
Right.
but with more daylight,
Yeah, we could go next
we
week.
we could do an evening if we're able to
Mhm.
make that happen.
I like doing that better, really.
Does
I
he
do
give an
too.
explanation, as to why he wants to clear 32 acres of land?
No?
Where is this exactly?
Florence Road, after you go off Route 10, there's a map. Why don't I just give you the map?
I would
So
like
it's
to-
private property?
He owns it, it's his land.
Why is DCR involved?
Huh?
Why is DCR involved?
DCR approves forest cutting plans under chapter 132.
Oh, so on private land, they just don't.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, they have
So-
service foresters that review and approve them or comment on them or whatever.
And the, performing the work under an approved forest cutting plan affords it some exemptions under the Wetlands Protection Act regs.
So it's just,
So you know where the Heritage Horse Farm is?
yes.
That's right.
Which side of
It's
the?
right
Or
after.
there.
On the west
Oh,
side of Florence
okay.
Road.
Yeah.
So the Davies Farm, where they just recently demoed the yellow farmhouse, kind of as you're climbing the hill, he owns that as well. That's the property they have identified as the access to the area that they're logging on another parcel of land that he owns. It's just the, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Section
there
of the
are
area.
wetlands identified, I think that's probably based on DEP mapping. It's kind of consistent with what appears on the city's
It looks to me
property
like-
viewer.
The gray areas that, so are the wetlands just is it the entire gray area? It looks like the gray area is what he's proposing to clear, and there are wetlands in those gray areas.
I don't know,
It's not
I
very
think these little
clear.
log symbols designate
Landings.
landings.
I think that's what the legend.
Well, and if you look here, that's where the forest is. Like these are the exact
Right.
patches of
Oh,
trees.
yeah.
So it is.
So when he says filter strip, you know, we just have to assume that it's an area of 50 feet around that wetland area. Yeah, I guess it's just, but, you know, there's a stream, I think that's what this is, crossing.
The dotted lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
So
are
how-
streams shown.
I mean, I guess that's my concern is, you know, how.
Unless there are existing crossings.
And, yeah, we just don't know.
Right.
Yep.
So that's what we wanna understand better.
So,
I've got one back too. Sorry, I just wanna keep them all together.
So if the
No,
commission isn't here for
yeah.
Mr. Gall within a week,
No, less than a week.
by what date? This 13th? It's Friday.
Yeah, I would say Thursday, cause the city offices are closed on Friday.
Okay. Commission isn't here for Mr. Gall by March 12th, 2015, we will contact him.
I would contact him by phone.
I may have to confirm the number with you.
Okay?
have you ever mailed anything to a drawer before?
A drawer, no.
No, drawer N.
Yes.
That's
drawer
the,
and-
the forester's mailing address is drawer N.
What a drawer. It's from The Simpsons.
Wait, say that again.
The Simpsons, one of the families.
This is how we keep meeting short. Cause we all get touchy.
Oh, right.
That's the only thing that keeps me coming back.
I know, that too.
It's amusing, I like it.
Okay, this is
Budget.
budget, Mr. Patrick.
Is this the approved budget?
No, that's still under negotiations right now.
Okay, the proposed budget?
But we've
That
already.
is just that's your monthly budget update, so that's your conservation commission budget, it's your wetland fees number, because you were asking about it.
Thank you.
And then it's the, conservation accounts with the Ecodale East and West property management,
Mhm.
and then the other open space account, and then the community gardens account.
Okay.
Do you know how to read these? I have no idea how to read these.
I can show
Looking
you
at
after.
it.
Always look
I
at it,
know,
might
you
be
showed
good.
me before.
Um,
Yeah, it just looks serious.
why I use the blue highlighter to help you out.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I agree.
So, I don't know if anyone from the Nashwanicon steering committee ever goes to, COLAP, Massachusetts Council of Lakes and Ponds. It's basically lake and pond management. And they have, I've attended it before, it's they call it a lake and pond management workshop, some of this is a slightly different thing than I've attended. But, it's all about managing bodies of water. You know, it's definitely geared toward, you know, lake and pond association, recreational water bodies, but it talks about aquatic invasives control, and so if anyone is interested in learning more. I went to that with Hager. Here's the letter, oh good, here's the letter we sent. Bernie and Jamie put the number on it, awesome. Those are special permits, okay. Is there anything else? Oh, I sent this to you and Jim Brayshaw.
Yes,
I
I
picked
saw
it up
it.
at the MAC conference.
That's all, thank you.
There's, funding available for dealing with beaver problems.
Do we still have beaver problems on West Street?
Off West Street, yeah, actually the
Everybody
other
has
side,
beaver
they're
problems.
chewing large trees on Jim Gracious property.
No.
Yeah, really.
I thought they got rid of all the
No.
trees for the intersection.
No, these are right along
here.
Hannah Brook.
Oh.
Um,
Huh.
and then I haven't heard anything about recurring problems off the South Street.
Me either.
It's only a matter of time.
Oh, South Street, that's right, that's where it was.
That's where but there,
That
there
was
was a
on West Street,
problem that
too.
got ignored on West Street, on
Right.
Hannah Brook.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
So.
Is it just to get them to come and kill the beavers? Or
This would be for,
Beaver
beaver
deceiver.
deceivers, cohabitation devices, water flow regulators, as opposed to trapping and killing, which is the only management alternative. So, which might be what they did on South Street. Don't just go away.
You can go to little beaver carriers and,
You can't transport nuisance wildlife.
oh, I never done this. Moving on, let's get.
Raccoons hate the sound of the human voice, you just play AM radio and they'll go away.
Really?
That's what we
Really?
did.
Huh.
How'd your neighbors feel about that?
There was a mama and several babies living underneath our porch. And so I took speakers, put it on, AM
Yeah.
Republican. She was gone in the day.
Okay, so on that note, and there's nothing else to discuss, motion to adjourn,
I move we adjourn.
I'll say.
all in favor?
Right? Excellent.
Can you turn the camera on?
Yes.